keep them safe, sometimes we have to change policies. The legislature's changed the law. We're about to see some changes November 1st, but there are some policies that DJS can change to fix things.
Well, less than a week after a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old are accused in the brutal attack of a Butcher's Hill man, there's now a sudden shift in policy from the Department of Juvenile Services.
Well, today, the department announced that kids referred to DJS accused of a violent felony and not detained will be placed on ankle monitoring. If a child is already on an ankle monitor and accused of another violent felony, they will be detained by DJS. The sudden shift in policies comes after months of in-depth reporting by Fox 45 News highlighting the flaws within the juvenile justice system.
Well, we are also learning tonight that Republicans in both Maryland's House and Senate have sent this joint letter to Governor Wes Moore, calling on him to remove Department of Juvenile Services Secretary Vincent Schiraldi. The letter says during Schiraldi's tenure, the department has seen a number of, quote, catastrophic failures, citing the beating of a man in Butcher's Hill, as we've been talking about it, as one of the most recent of those failures. We have extensive team coverage of today's changes and the issues inside DJS.
Let's begin with Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost and a deep dive into the policy changes. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Kai and Mary, we know that the policy changes announced by the Department of Juvenile Services, as you mentioned, comes on the heels of our relentless reporting and questions about how young people in Maryland are held accountable when they do commit crimes. And some of these policy changes, which calls for more detention and ankle monitoring, is being met by praise from leaders. But some say more needs to be done.
It's the video taking the state by storm. The desperate pleas from a daughter. Dad. Distraught as her father lie on the ground, motionless. Bernie, unconscious.
You know, they look at it as a game, you know, like let's go hunt down some more old people.
The Department of Juvenile Services releasing the 15-year-old suspect to his guardian. Tuesday morning, DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi announcing a shift in policy. Now, kids who are not detained but accused of a violent felony will be placed on electronic monitoring. And those kids already wearing an ankle monitor who go on to commit another violent felony will be detained.
I definitely believe it's a step in the right direction, but we have a long way to go.
Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates says he's been in communication with Governor Wes Moore and welcomes the policy shift. But he says DJS does not consider robbery a violent crime, which raises questions about the Butcher's Hill attack.
News Radio 1090 and FM 101.5.
Tuesday morning, Senate President Bill Ferguson, who also represents the area of Baltimore where the attack happened, says DJS did not have all of the details when they released the 15-year-old suspect.
The challenge here is this is an operational issue because the laws are on the books.
And Bates says the intake process, when the decision is made to hold a juvenile or not, is where he remains frustrated.
We're the lawyers. And DJS, they're not the lawyers. So sometimes they look at things differently than we would look at with our analysis under the law. And that is frustrating.
Bates says when Baltimore police brought the juvenile to the DJS Center in Baltimore, the case was considered a robbery.
In the statement of facts that everybody is supposed to read, it clearly breaks down the facts that would allege that it was a little bit more than a robbery. It talks about a gun and it talks about some of the injuries that the victim received.
When asked if the intake officer reviewed the statement of fact from BPD, DJS spokesperson says they can't comment on individual cases. The state agency shielding information behind privacy laws. Since Friday, we have been asking DJS if the intake officer made a mistake when they released the 15-year-old suspect. But no answer from the agency. After the policy shift, we also asked DJS what sparked the shift. How does DJS define a violent felony? Meanwhile, lawmakers calling for Secretary Schiraldi to resign. Republican delegate Robin Grammer telling Fox 45 News the surveillance video of Bernie's attack is horrific. He goes on to say, quote, repeat offenders involved in violent crimes should not be released to mommy and daddy. Delegate Eric Bouchard says juveniles under these circumstances should be detained for evaluation of both mental health and home life. While some policies are changing at DJS, it's still unclear if the agency will consider robbery a violent crime.
And Mackenzie, you just questioned the governor about these policy changes and about DJS Secretary Schiraldi. How did he respond?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of questions for the governor at this point, right? Especially following the news of the policy shift. The governor not really giving a yes or no to my questions when I asked him specifically about robberies being considered a violent crime.
We believe we have to continue coordinating and we have to continue working together to make the system work better. We know we have work to do. We know that the announcements that were made this morning were important announcements to continue to make sure that there is real measurements of accountability, things that I know that we stand for, that the city stands for, that our leaders stand for. We have to make sure that people are accountable for their actions, and we plan on working with anybody who wants to be a serious partner in this work to ensure that we have increase accountability, increase supports, but also ensuring that people in our neighborhoods and our communities can feel safe. There has been very real progress that has taken place not just in Baltimore, but throughout the state of Maryland when it comes to homicides, when it comes to non-fatal shooting, historic drops that we've seen over the past 19 months. But we have more work to do, and there is nothing that we will not do, but also we will pressure test everything that needs to be pressure tested in order to make sure that our communities are safe.
Do you believe that the 15-year-old should have been released, and do you think that Secretary Schiraldi should keep his job?
I'm not going to comment on individual cases. We're all praying for Bernie and praying for his safe recovery. But the thing that we know is we are working together to ensure that we can keep our communities safe.
Does that mean Secretary Schiraldi, he still has your support?
We are going to continue working together to make sure our communities are safe.
Not really a ringing endorsement there from the governor for his own secretary of the Department of Juvenile Services. And going back to that letter that we saw from the House and Senate Republicans, that letter came moments before we questioned the governor here at this event in Baltimore about housing. And obviously this is something that we will continue to report on. And going back to DJS, the agency did not respond to our questions. We sent multiple questions, not just about the policy shift, but about questions we've had about the case in Butchers Hill since Friday. And again, time and time again, the department ignoring those questions. Again, we've also asked for an interview with Secretary Schiraldi himself, the department not agreeing to that. But if they change their mind, again, more than welcome and more than happy to get that arranged. We're live in Baltimore. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
I'm Mary Bubala. Thank you for watching. Here's another video for you to watch. Also take some time to subscribe to our YouTube channel.